Animals have been used in war since they were first domesticated thousands of years ago, and since then there have been countless wars in which they have been used to gain the advantage. From the obvious abilities of horses and dogs to the unique application of chickens, here are 5 animals that have been used in war. For thousands of years since they were first domesticated, horses have been used in warfare. They have continued to be used even in the modern day in third world countries for handling harsh terrain and for ceremonial displays, such as the Household Guard in Britain, Canada's Governor General's Horse Guard and the US 1st Cavalry Unit. They were first used for war in around 15,000 BC, when they would most likely have been used to pull chariots. It wasn't until around 500 BC when they were rode into battle. Since then, horses have been selectively bred to create the best horse for different parts of war. They are split into 3 main groups: light, medium and heavy. Light horses were the first to be used in combat. They pulled light chariots in ancient Egypt, but other cultures used them as well, most famously the Mongols, who used the speed and agility of the horses to great effect. However, as they were only small, about 122 centimeters to 152 centimeters long, and weighing around 360 to 450 kilograms, they could not carry much weight. Horses can only carry about 30% of their body weight, so the Mongols used light armour and weapons such as bows and javelins. In the Middle Ages, light horses were known as roundseys, and later on in history, in the Napoleonic era, they were used by hussars to quickly skirmish with enemy troops. Medium weight horses included the medieval destrier, and were the most commonly used horses for everything from carrying armoured knights to towing cannons in the Napoleonic Wars. A medium weight horse is around 450 to 540 kilograms. Heavy horses, like today's draught horses, were first bred in the Middle Ages in Europe, and were usually used only to pull supply wagons, but some suggest that they may have carried the heaviest armoured knights. They were massive beasts, weighing around 600 to 900 kilograms, but were not used as much as the other horse groups due to their size and slow speed. Horses were obviously utilised a lot in war, and that's because they are very common, they can be selectively bred and can be easily trained and ridden. This is why horses have been such a staple of warfare, but it has cost them a lot. During World War I, it's estimated around 8 million horses died, and in World War II, Germany was still mainly using horses to transport troops, but there is no hard numbers of the casualties, but we expect that there was a lot. Elephants were used a lot in warfare before the Christian era, but haven't been used on the same scale since gunpowder was invented and the elephants became too big and cumbersome to avoid gunfire. The first elephants were tamed around 4500 BC by the Shang dynasty in China, but were only used for farming and domestic use. It's estimated it wasn't until 400 BC that elephants were used in war. Elephants were then used all across Asia, the Middle East and the Mediterranean. Most famously, Hannibal led a Carthaginian army that included 50 war elephants over the Alps to fight Rome. Elephants were used in war due to their enormous size and strength. In battle, only male elephants were used, however, as they are the largest and most aggressive. But only one gender of elephant could be used in a battle, as the relationship between male and female elephants is one of danger and aggression. Male elephants get scared of large groups of females as they live in solitude and alone. Small numbers of females will flee from a male. This is because male elephants in heat are very aggressive and have been known to seriously hurt females when trying to mate. Elephants can carry an enormous amount of weight, mainly due to the large muscles they have and their robust skeleton. Most mammal skeletons account for 10% of their body weight, but elephant skeletons account for about 20% of their body weight. Elephants also have very straight limbs, which lets them resist downforce better. This also happens with horses, which makes them so effective. An elephant's trunk is pure muscle, no bone or cartilage, and consists of around 150,000 bundles of muscle fibres. This means they can carry a 300 kilogram log. All of this makes the African elephant the world's strongest animal by tonnage, and consequently a perfect choice for war. Chickens may seem like the most useless animal for warfare, but during the first Iraq War, the US Army implemented the Kuwaiti Field Chicken Program, also known as the KFC program. The chickens were kept near soldiers at all times to detect for chemical and gas attacks. Chickens and other birds have very weak respiratory systems and will suffocate easily if there isn't enough oxygen in the air. It's the same premise of having a canary down a mine to detect poisonous gases. The US authorized the program because the advanced technology they had to detect chemical attacks kept malfunctioning, so chickens were a fail-safe for detecting it. Sadly, this meant the chicken had to die to fulfill its purpose. Camels are very well adapted to desert life, and so are perfect for desert warfare. The deserts of Arabia and North Africa are arid and hostile environments, but camels thrive there due to their amazing adaptations. Their feet have a lot of surface area to spread their weight and stop them sinking in the sand. They don't pant or sweat, so conserve water. They don't chew their food, but regurgitate it later to keep as much moisture in it as possible. Camels were first used in battle in about 850 BCE by Arab king Gindibu. Later on in history, camels were effectively used against traditional horse cavalry, as the scent of camels spook horses. This was used very effectively by Lydian king Sirosus in 550 BCE, when his vastly outnumbered camel cavalry defeated Cyrus the Great of Persia's horse cavalry by spooking it. Camels continued to be used to great effect in desert warfare by Napoleon and later on British, Italian and French colonial armies in Africa. In the modern day, the Indian, Moroccan and Egyptian militaries still keep camel divisions for patrolling. This shows how valuable camels are to desert warfare. Like most animals on this list, dogs were first tamed thousands of years ago, about 15,000 in Europe, but different continents domesticated dogs at different times. In Southeast Asia, archaeological evidence suggests dogs were only domesticated in the last 5,000 years. Dogs were heavily used in classical civilizations, by everyone from Romans to Gauls to Assyrians. At first, dogs were used for patrolling and guarding, but in 600 BC is the first recorded case of dogs being used on the battlefield. The most vicious and deadly of these dogs were the Molosser dogs from the modern-day Balkans. During the medieval era, dogs weren't used for battle, but instead went back to being guards or used for hunts. It wasn't until around the 1500s when the Spanish used mastiffs, specially trained to hunt and kill the native Aztecs and Mayans. Dogs were not used in combat on a large scale again until the World Wars, where in the First World War they carried messages and did reconnaissance in no man's land, laying down telephone wires. Some Belgian Carabiniers had special dog-drawn machine guns, and the Red Cross had specially trained casualty dogs which carried medical supplies. They would go onto the battlefield and find injured men who would use the medical equipment on the dog to treat themselves. The dogs would stay by them as well to give them moral support. During World War II, the Soviets trained dogs to run under tanks with bombs to blow them up, which backfired when the dogs targeted Soviet tanks, as these were the ones they had been trained with. In the Pacific Theater, the US Marines applied dogs to sniff out hidden Japanese bunkers and traps. Dogs have been used to their full potential only rather recently. They are crucial to modern day militaries as bomb sniffers and have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. They are extremely effective at this because of their superb sense of smell. It is thought to be around 10,000 to 100,000 times better than ours depending on the breed. To put this in perspective, if there was a teaspoon of sugar in two 50-meter swimming pools worth of water, the dog would be able to sniff it out. The part of the brain dedicated to smell is about 40 times larger than in a human. Dogs' noses are also specially adapted to smell. They have a cavity in the back of their noses where about 12% of the air they breathe in is trapped. Bony structures called turbinates sort the different odour molecules, and receptors on the surface of the structure will detect the individual odour molecules and send signals to the brain where the dog can tell all the different smells in the air. All this, coupled with their trainability, speed, agility and adorableness, makes dogs an amazing animal, but of course this meant they could also be weaponised. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Remember that you can subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this one. We now also have a Discord server. If you would like to talk to us about dinosaurs and stuff, Feel free to join, the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.